Hello and welcome back to the channel, everybody. I am your host, Vortex, from MobileMusicPro.com, your home for mobile music production. And if you are new to the channel, what we do here is release weekly videos teaching people how to produce music on their iOS device. And in today's video, we're going to be going over our top 5 features that we want most inside of Cubasis 3, right after this. And remember folks, if you do enjoy this content, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below. Now first off, we do have to give Steinberg a ton of credit here, as we have gotten a ton of different features just in the last couple of updates. For example, in the previous 3.2 update, we got keyboard shortcuts and brand new plugins from Waves. And in the most recent version 3.3 update, we got MIDI learn, multi-out, and sidechain capabilities. And of course, we do have videos on each and every one of those updates, so definitely make sure to check those out if you want to find out more about those updates in detail. But all in all, it is pretty clear that Steinberg is listening, so I thought it'd be a good time to share the next new features that we'd like to see implemented. Features that will truly improve the day-to-day working experience of Cubasis users around the world. And finally, just a quick shout out to Lars over there at Steinberg, who is the project manager and team leader of the Cubasis 3 team. This guy works extremely hard answering questions all day in the Steinberg forum and is just an all-around very passionate guy. And we just wanted to quickly thank him for his hard work and dedication, so thank you so much, Lars, for everything that you do over there. Alright, and now with that intro aside, let's get started going over these top 5 feature requests. But first, real quick, we'd just like to offer our usual disclaimer here, and that this is just our top 5 feature requests, so definitely make sure to leave yours in the comments below. Now, of course, there is a bunch more than just 5 features that we'd like to see added to Cubasis 3, but I think that these really are the ones that generally tend to float to the top of people's lists, at least to the people that I've talked to. And finally, just remember that no DAW is absolutely perfect. And that's simply because everything is being built by humans. From the software to the hardware, there's always going to be some kind of bugs somewhere. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continuously try to improve things, refine things, and just generally make things better for everybody. Alright, now let's go ahead and take a look at our very first most requested feature. And that, for most people, is a tempo or time signature track. And what this feature allows for is for you to be able to change the tempo or time signature at any point during the song. As you can see, we're on the documentation page for Cubase, and you can see that Cubase has something called a tempo track editor. And this tempo track editor provides an overview of the project tempo settings. It allows you to add and edit tempo events. Now, I am going to be showing several features from the desktop version of Cubasis called Cubase, but that doesn't mean that I want everything to look exactly like it does inside of Cubase. I really want to make sure that Steinberg keeps with the user interface themes that it's had so far, keeping the workflow super smooth and just in general making the app easy to use. Now, we should be able to zoom in a little bit here so you can see this image in a little bit better detail, but it is really simple to use. At any given spot in the song, you can just add a new tempo event and have that immediately change from the previous tempo to the new tempo. And if you look across all the different forums, including the Steinberg forums and the Audiobus forums and more, you really will find that this is probably the most requested feature. And in fact, even some genres are specifically dependent on being able to change the BPM in the middle of the song. So this one is definitely a big one, Steinberg. And the next feature that we'd very much like to see inside of Cubasis 3 is a chord track. Now, the chord track allows you to add chord events and scale events inside of your song. And if we go back here, we can see exactly what the chord track looks like. And I can blow this up a little bit for you guys. There we go. Now, the chord track can come in super handy. What it's really used for is actually much more than just a visual representation of the chords in your song. But that is still pretty cool as well. Instead of staring just at MIDI, trying to figure out what these chords are, there's just these big bright letters. And the desktop version of Cubasis called Cubase also comes with something called the chord editor. Now, there is a chord editor inside of Cubasis, but it's very simple and rudimentary compared to the one that we see found in the desktop version. So Steinberg, if you do decide to bring over that chord track, definitely make sure to give our chord editor a little bit of an upgrade. And the chord track also comes with something called the music scale setup dialog. And this will allow you to set up and manage specific scales across your song. You can see here that if we zoom in a little bit, you can see all these different chord suggestions that are coming to you based off of a scale. Now, of course, we do have a few of these chord type apps already available to us. In fact, there's actually a bunch of those out there because they are really handy. Apps like the Rosetta Scalar Suite, Chord Jam, and more. But still, it will be extremely handy to have this already built in inside of Cubasis. So again, the chord track allows you to easily add chords and create chord progressions without having to worry about MIDI or even really understanding what scales are. So overall, just a really easy and fast way to work with chords. We have the actual chord functions documentation pulled up here for Cubase, which is of course the desktop version of Cubasis. And you can see here it says you can build chord progressions by adding chord events to the chord track. You can then convert chord events to MIDI. And you can use that chord track to control audio playback or MIDI playback, of course. So it acts just like MIDI, being able to control other instruments. You can easily change all the chord track voicing, and you can even extract chord events from MIDI data to get an overview of the harmonic structure of the MIDI file. And of course, then easily modify those chords with that chord editor and scale editor that I showed you earlier. Now, this might not be the biggest requested feature out there for Cubasis, but it's definitely one of mine. Because though I do know a little bit of music theory, and I do love working with MIDI, the workflow using these chord tracks is just so much faster for me. So Steinberg, please get this implemented into Cubasis. Alright, and on to the next feature, which I'm super looking forward to coming into Cubasis one day, and that is a drum sequencer. Now, technically, we're looking at Cubasis's drum editor, which is both a sequencer and just many things combined into one. But really, for Cubasis 3, I would just be super happy with just a basic drum sequencer. Now, of course, you can use the piano roll and enter your drums that way, and there's even a couple of drum sequencer apps that come in the form of AUV3 MIDI. But again, it would just be super handy to have that already built in inside of the DAW, especially seeing how the drum sequencer is a pretty basic part of most DAWs, and even a basic part of most iOS DAWs, including DAWs like Beatmaker 3, Nano Studio 2, and ZenBeats. Now, if we take a look and see here, we can see that the drum editor has a ton of functionality beyond just having a sequencer. And looking at it now, I'm just getting super jealous still of the desktop version. But guys, this just has to happen. Steinberg, you definitely have to implement some kind of drum sequencer inside of Cubasis. And if you guys do end up implementing some kind of drum sequencer, definitely make sure to give us those basic features along with it, such as velocity and swing. But yeah, overall, I really do think that a ton of people could benefit from having some type of drum sequencer inside of Cubasis 3. Alright, and now this next feature here, this one is a big one, folks. And of course, I am talking about a full-on sampler. Now, I'm not talking about a MIDI sampler, or a micro sampler, or a nano sampler, or any other type of small version of a sampler. I'm talking about a full-on sample editor like the one that you see here found inside of Cubase. And again, of course, there are other AUV3 samplers that you can implement inside of Cubasis. For example, right now I'm using Segments and Koala a lot. But nevertheless, it would still be amazing if we could get an actual, real, full-on sampler built inside of Cubasis. It needs to be really easy to be able to add files and feature functionality such as drag and drop. And we definitely need a bunch of pitch effects in there, such as glide and legato. It of course needs to automatically be able to detect a key of any sample as well, and really needs to be laid out a lot like this, a lot like the desktop version, where you can see the waveform at the top and then assign keys on a little keyboard at the bottom. Because how the MIDI sampler works right now is just not intuitive. And it's just not what most producers are used to when they think of a sampler. And of course, a big thing for producers are one-shots. We need to be able to easily drag and drop a one-shot on the sampler and be able to play that across our entire keyboard. And without a bunch of complexity too, like literally just be able to do that in one drag and one tap. So please, Steinberg, please get us a full-on real sampler. Other DAWs are, of course, running circles around that right now, such as Beatmaker 3 with pretty much the best sampler in the entire iOS space. Like I said, we are getting by right now with apps like Segments and Koala, but we definitely need a built-in full-on pro sampler. Alright, now for the next feature, we're going to cheat a little bit and kind of file a couple of different features under one section, which is going to be called User Interface Enhancements. Now, the first UI enhancement that we have to have is definitely going to be scrolling. We need to be able to scroll with our mouse wheel really easy to be able to go in and out of the timeline. And we need to be able to scroll horizontally and vertically. So for example, if I'm over here, I need to be able to scroll right now with my mouse wheel, and that needs to be the equivalent of my fingers pinching and dragging here, allowing me to zoom in and out of the timeline. So that is vertically, and then we need to be able to scroll horizontally as well by just using the scroll wheel and making that be the equivalent of pinching and zooming here. Now, in addition to the scroll wheel being used there, we also need to be able to scroll through our menus quickly. So for example, if we just pull up our effect list here, we'll just go to add a new effect, go to audio units. I should be able to use my scroll wheel right now to scroll up and down this list. But of course, you do have to tap and drag. Now, I get, of course, that the iPad is largely a touch device, but Apple did allow for a mouse and keyboard. And in fact, Cubasis just recently implemented keyboard shortcuts. So Apple is aware that there are people that want to use a keyboard and mouse on this device, especially for more pro apps like Cubasis and LumaFusion. So yes, the scroll wheel needs to be implemented as a very important part of the overall Cubasis workflow. Now, the next big user interface enhancement that I'd like to see is a search bar. I'd like to see a search bar anytime that we're choosing for effects, whether that's effects on your insert track, send track, master track, MIDI track, or whatever. So if we look over here, we can see that there is just a ton of plugins that I have here. I mean, just a bunch, and I don't even really have that many, as I do try to consolidate most of my plugins so that I just don't have that much choice. This allows me to have a lot more creativity when I'm producing. But as you can see, even a conservative person like myself is still going to have quite a few plugins in here. So what we need is the ability to have a search bar right here at the very top. So I can just start typing, for example, a letter or a number, and instantly the results start coming up. And we can see this being implemented and used across the iOS ecosystem, for example, in apps like AUM and AudioBus. So a search bar really needs to come into play. This is definitely going to affect your day-to-day workflow. If you've ever tuned into any one of the streams, you can definitely see that that's one of the main things that I get frustrated with. It's just the constant scrolling and scrolling to find the exact plugin that I'm looking for when I already know the name, or at least the first couple letters of the name. And again, this needs to be for plugins and instruments anytime you have a big list like this. So please, Steinberg, please give us a search box so that we can search through our plugins and our instruments super easy. And the final user interface enhancement that I'd like to talk about in today's video is going to be track folding. Now, for those that aren't familiar, it's basically the equivalent of having track folders, or in other words, being able to nest tracks under certain sections. So for example, you can see over here, we have all of our drums labeled in orange. And what I'd like to be able to do is create a drums folder that I can then drag all of these drum tracks into. And the same goes for my FX, bass, piano, and my arpeggios, chords, and leads. Now this particular project, as you can see, doesn't have a whole lot of tracks, around 28 tracks here. But it would still be handy to be able to have track folders to be able to drag all my drum tracks into and so forth. If only so I can just have less clutter on the screen. And again, this is a feature that is built into pretty much every single DAW, though I haven't really found it that popular on iOS DAWs yet. But nevertheless, track folding or track folders, however you want to say it, is definitely an important user interface enhancement that has to happen. All right, and there you go. Those are our top 5 features. Steinberg, I really hope you are listening. And again, thank you for the amazing DAW and all the updates that you guys have been putting out so far. I'm just super excited to see what you're going to do in the future. All right, and now it's time again for our final thoughts. And if you are still rocking with us, then we just can't thank you enough for being here, especially those folks that are here every single Wednesday and Friday to watch our live streams and our live premieres. Now, at first glance, this may seem like a criticism video, but it's really not that at all. We only made this video because we indeed do love Cubasis 3 so much. We just want to see it live up to its full potential. And also remember again that these were just our top 5 feature requests, so if we didn't hit any of the ones that you are looking forward to, definitely make sure to leave those in the comments below. Now personally, I've been extremely happy with Cubasis, other than a few quirks here and there. It is the DAW of choice over here at MMP, so I definitely do enjoy using it on a day-to-day basis. And I do hope that if you haven't tried it yet or haven't tried it in a while, that you do give it another chance to see how far it's come. And finally, we just like to thank everybody who participated in our Halloween contest. Thank you so much to all the producers, and thank you so much to everybody who voted. A big shout out to the top 4 prize winners here. You guys absolutely killed it, and I'm just so thrilled that the community got to hear your music. And if you didn't win, don't worry, because we will be having plenty more giveaways and contests in the future, so definitely make sure to stay tuned to the channel. And if you do want to keep up with everything that we are doing over here at the channel, including contests, giveaways, sample packs, and much more, then definitely make sure to sign up to our completely free mailing list at MobileMusicPro.com. And so, until next time everybody, keep talking music, and we'll see you later. Hey everybody, Vortex here, and if you're not aware yet, we now have over 100 fully edited mobile music tutorial videos. And we make music every single Wednesday live on our channel right inside of Cubasis on our iPad. Plus, we also have a bunch of free sample packs, guides, and more at our website at MobileMusicPro.com/free. And so if you are into that sort of thing, producing music on your iPhone or iPad, then definitely make sure to subscribe and check out the rest of the videos on the channel that we know you'll love.